are you paying too much for a cash flowing asset? Well, first of all, let's have a look at these types of cash flowing assets, and we'll use property and business as an example. So let's say you want to buy a property. Now, if you find other properties that are comparable to the one that you're trying to buy, that'll give you a good indication. So if it's a residential property, for instance, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, does it have a garage, does it have a garden, and what does it rent for? Try and find out which ones in as close proximity as possible to the one that you're trying to buy give you that data. So are there recent sale prices and are there recent rental listings that have succeeded? You can find some of this data online, but also talking to local estate agents as well will give you a good indication. But going along, having done some research beforehand will definitely help because you'll have a good idea of the rough ballpark figures to start with. And if the property that you're negotiating on sort of does far better in terms of the numbers than the other comparables, you might also want to have a look at why that might be, and that could be coming down to the seller's motivations perhaps to sell sooner rather than later if you are getting a great deal on it, or there might be some other underlying issue, in which case you might need to have a look into that. But ultimately, on the face of it, if you can find carbon copies of the property that you want to buy and the comparable figures, then that'll give you a good indication of whether or not you're paying the right price for it. You also might want to consider things like, is the property value in that area likely to go up over time? And of course, you need to prioritize for your own purposes whether you're looking to get higher yield, as in higher cash flow coming in, or are you looking for capital gains? So you're looking for that property to go up in value sooner than later. And I mean, those things can be somewhat predicted, and in some cases you never really know 100% what's going to happen. It only takes, for example, one big employer in the area to move out as such for that entire area to go down in value. Similarly, it only takes one big employer to come into an area for there suddenly to be a huge amount of demand, and you'll see property prices increase. So that's useful in terms of comparables for property. But how do you do it for business? Well, in business, there are a number of different metrics that you can use. And the one that is used in mergers and acquisitions is Ebitda, or adjusted Ebitda. And that Ebitda is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. Now, that can go into significant detail on all of those bits, but that's effectively how you compare apples with apples and bananas with bananas. And it's a similar sort of thing with the comparables, but it's like, for example, using the house analogy. If you've got, for example, a 5-bedroom house that you're looking to buy, and you've only got a 3-bedroom house or a 7-bedroom house as recent comparables, how would you sort of normalize those, as it were, to account for the slight differences? And that's what Ebitda, or adjusted Ebitda, seeks to do. Now, Warren Buffett, who many will know as a great investor, doesn't like Ebitda or adjusted Ebitda. And the reason for that is because what he's looking at is he's looking at investing in businesses that typically are staying as is. They may grow over time, but ultimately the structure of the business doesn't change that much. But the reason why in mergers and acquisitions people still use it is because they're looking to change things up. And typically the business that they inherit is not going to be the business going forward, because they're going to make changes to various things. So that's where there is the discrepancy typically when you hear about people talking about Ebitda and adjusted Ebitda versus other sorts of metrics that can be used. But ultimately, all that people are trying to do is compare and make sure that they're getting a right price.